The Major 1 Finals Game 9 begins here and now. You're just tuning in. You've missed quite the weekend. The ups, the downs, the emotional roller coaster we have been going through is all coming to an end here soon. Just 4 games ahead of us now, Jacob, as we're getting into the deep end, the deep water of this Fortnite competition. And Curve and Venom just proven to us that, hey, yesterday, they clearly had everything on lock. Things just didn't quite line up for them in the end game. But today, it is starting to click. And for Tyler and Chance, right? This is a team that's had a lot to deal with as well. But Tyler popping off right now, really getting his money's worth. And don't forget, they haven't been perfect either, but they found themselves inside the top 10 off of that monstrous performance.
Just big moments here. Kind of closing out the day. 4 games left. Might seem like a lot, but it definitely isn't. Threats and Fear probably are feeling it. In that last game, also, they were inside of that top 13 bubble. They went down relatively early and fell all the way down to 15th place because of these off-spawn contested fights. So with Blanks and Mako, you can see they're trying to make a last-ditch effort towards the top of the leaderboard. For Threats and Fear, they're right there. So we talk about mind games. What does that do to a team like Threats and Fear? Do you play aggressive? Do you try to go ahead and disengage, split the drop? I think there's a lot of decisions to be made for Threats and Fear. There's not a lot of time to make those.
That last game, they only survived for 5 minutes. 5 minutes means they fell in 41st place. They were on track to remain in qualification range, of course, for that land spot, the prestigious land spots that are available. And now they slipped down to 15. So that 20-point gap that you talked about, I mean, that was given and then some. Now it's an uphill battle for them to find their way back into the race. Boyo Peterbot on the other side, trying to figure out what's going on with this team here. They've had, overall, if you just look at the overall performances, pretty good. However, the best of the best, right? Those that are up at the very top are just outpacing them by a significant margin as far as overall consistency. So will Peterbot and Pollo get their moment to finally win a game is the question.
Especially, you kind of look at some of these teams at the top of the leaderboard and their overall match history, and you kind of look at it from anybody else, you're like, man, that's a good match history. But for the teams like Peterbot and Pollo, for the teams like this Clicks and Higgs, when you start off the first 3 games for Clicks and Higgs with victory royales, it kind of sets the tone and the pace for the rest of the tournament, but then things don't necessarily go your way. With one of the best VOIs, they got 4 games left. I think anything is possible, especially since the last couple games to start the day. They have their head on straight. They're still staying to their plan, going for high ground when they can. It's just unfortunate. I think more and more teams are ready to make the risk with everything on the line today.
For me, I still can't be the only one who's wondering why in the world did they end up at the Dark Dominion against Golden Rapid, who are clearly playing that's cut above the rest of the competition right now. So we'll keep eyes on this. This is teams tend to rotate into for metal. Let's get this little highlight here, some action. Noisy and Neo just hold this little lurk play there. Meanwhile, Tyler and Chance survived the Boulevard. Looks like Curve and Venom have not decided to push down south towards his team, and instead they end up disengaging and out the southern edge of the map.
This is something we saw Tyler and Chance do in that last game. They landed the south side of Battlewood. Sometimes it can be a little contested, so they immediately go towards the south and try to cut off the loot path of any of these teams that are on this portion of the map. Going to be plenty of opportunity depending on what your timing is, but it seems like Tyler and Chance barely missed their window. Players going to go ahead and rotate around for free. Aviv and King, though, another team. Aviv, you're talking about solo clutch and big impact points. Aviv was one of those players on the top of the leaderboard, and then you take into a fact like the eval finals right before FNC has started. They were the only team to win 2 different games, so they have the blueprint. Just unfortunately, we really haven't seen the success that we'd hope for from a team like this. Kind of seen if they can really bounce back in today's tournament. In 74 points, though. About 80 points down away from that top 13 window.
Yeah, it looks like every other game they're making somewhat of a semblance towards the end game, but not quite being able to push the boulder past the peak of the mountain there. Get that momentum going, but then on actually find Magma G-Monster right here, trying to set up. I don't thought he was spotted out, but Magma's got no idea that he's actually approaching this close here. I don't know if he's going to go for the high ground player or the low ground ones. G-Monster's exposed as well.
I think think they might just go for a straight shot, but Magma's dropping down low, so he's probably going to wait for the window to open. He go ahead and disengage out. G-Money gets spotted out on the other side. Don't take your pick at this point because Veno and Curve are ready to go all in. Boxes up one, slides into the box onto Magma. Now they're going to go ahead and take down G-Money. A quick 2 eliminations. Veno and Curve, they're not slowing down.
And I've worked with Veno enough times to know exactly what his thought process there, right? Put the pressure down on the other opponent. The other one's gonna get risky. He plays the switch, reverse card, lands on him, boxes him up before he even recognizes he's actually the Veno is just playing different right now. And again, this is no different than what we saw yesterday. They have been overly successful in the early game. And now that they're finding the end game solution to their problems, that's why they've been able to close this gap so fast.
Not sure how many teams can really take them on head-to-head with the way they're playing so far, so you maybe have to catch them on a rotation, maybe get a lobby focus. But Bolts and Acorn talked about their strategy. Vivid broke it down, that long launch pad towards the back. They combine both the Fizz and the Shockwave for easy rotations just like this. We jump on board Creon Dragon, who third party to fight to start the game yesterday. It was Reet and Cooper as well. We talk about threats and fear falling outside of the bubble. Reet and Cooper are surely close to that same situation. Not sure how Cooper went down in that last game, but we saw Reet by himself in some of those later zones, struggling to get out alive. So this is going to be a little bit of a makeup game, a little bit of a redemption to kind of build that confidence back up.
We got tagged back in exchange there a few times, so just giving away some of that damage that they're, of course, hard earning. Cooper was lost, like we've been, right? So there is some more work to be desired here. Blake and Preston, though, already at 2 elims. Look up, find another player here, lurking in the box. Situated in a monstrous surge base. Haven't quite gotten to see he is Cat Metal, though. Meanwhile, back on Rituals and Agers here. What's happening now?
Yeah, I'm not sure if they heard the noise from Blake and Preston. Maybe a reboot, not sure, but they see Preston by himself. I'm looking at the minimap. I don't see Blake anywhere in sight. Gotta imagine he's either gone or outside of the lobby. So Preston on the clock inside of the zone. It's only gonna be a 1 tick here, but they are tracing him down. He gets the patch up, which is huge. Back-to-back 50 HP being regenerated. No time to pop the shield though. So he's buying himself a good amount of time. And the longer they stay in the zone, if Aegis and Ritual don't heal up, they could be 1 shot away, but they sneak the shot through in yet again, and the numbers advantage work in their favor. Aegis and Ritual solidified their 2nd elimination here. My only question, Monster, is how much damage they took overall chasing that one down.
Definitely wasn't the cleanest fight. SU Dozer. Acorn and Bolts right now on the edge of Storm here. Dozer, SU looking to rotate out right now. Little do they know, though. Seems like there might be a duo here watching this little angle. It's actually Ravens and CDZ who have a bit of a choke point here down in the low ground. Acorn and Bolts hold strong. They want to maintain position here in the bush. CDZ had no idea they were there. So there it is. They get a couple tags. Off they go.
Good rotation here for Acorn and Bolts, putting them much ahead of the curve. But one thing I noticed kind of looking at that leaderboard, you got Cold and Rapid in first, Veno and Curve in 2nd place. Which you're thinking both big teams, right? But remember the reason why Veno came from EU to play on NA in the first place. It was to play with Cold. They had a bunch of lackluster performances, which caused them to split different ways. At one point, you saw the Peterbot and Poyo split up. Veno was going to play with Peter, but then he went with Curve. Cold was like, I'm going with Rapid. They already qualified for the Reload Elite Series Finals, so they already had that chemistry. I think the community saw that one coming from a mile away. So it's interesting to see 2 teammates who broke up now fighting for 1st and 2nd place on the leaderboard.
That's right, and Minish has that LAN experience as well, right? So bringing something totally new to this team here. And if they continue to do what they're doing and stay on track to make it to LAN, that's going to pay off for sure. This positioning here from Bucky and Zen underneath the bases of Lizzie and Neo.
I like it to not take too much damage or too much focus. Kind of makes it a little bit easier to rotate without shockwaving a high distance away to take damage. But they're not going to get as much opportunity to get Surge. The team above is going to get first strike at that. And by the time they can even open up their walls and try to get their own shots to connect, the zone not too far away from Dark Dominion at the current time. Cold and Rapid position up above. And honestly, there's no real reason for Cold and Rapid to stray away from their strategy. You know, you don't fix what isn't broken. If their worst placing is going to be a 26 and kind of an outlier game, and after that it's a 10th place, honestly, you'd be crazy to switch things up for no reason.
Yeah, I'm just starting to think, should we be upset if Venom flies in from EU and then wins an FNCS here in NA? You know, now we got to start like asking these types of questions here. I don't know how to feel about it. It's getting pretty contentious up at the top.
It's definitely going to help his case because we know how he feels about the comparison for EU to NA, and he's just right there. Honestly, less than 20 points away at this current time, closing the gap as the game does go on. See Reed Cooper on the distance, trying to make up for that last game. You see them kind of waiting, biding their time, and this is where a lot of teams, you know, if you look at the strategy from Clicks and Higgs, and you were asking the question, how did Higgs go down? You can almost imagine a situation like this, coming in, using the wonky wheel, and a lot of these teams, just like, you know, Reed and Cooper, Cold and Rapid, are positioned high up in their surge tower bases, so you're not going to be out of render distance as you would think.
Yeah, they got eyes on the boxes, right? We already kind of called this before. Teams that are positioned up in these bases do tend to wait things out and try to look for opportunity for those that are going to rotate, pass. Again, this is game number 9. 12, two-day format here, always keeping us on our toes. As things are starting to heat up, the 50-50 zone's going to pop, and it's coming up this way. You know, and this is kind of risky, right? But, you know, Jacob, we talked about teams that kind of play deep into the storm right here, and then the zone pulls your way, and you just stay here, right? You kind of tank all of this storm. Now, what you're doing is you're opening yourself up to potential sickness, but also, obviously, it's going to cost you a lot of heals.
Yeah, a lot of your resources. That's kind of the give and take of a game like this. You know, we talk about a similar scenario when somebody's getting struck down by Storm Surge. Do you out-heal it? Do you try to get eliminations? So hopefully with their position here, they do pull zone. Reed and Cooper, they're going to go through their splashes, maybe some pizzas to try to maintain their position. Not only on high ground, but on the north side of the map where it's going to open up. It's going to be a little bit slower to travel through. Muds and Sphinx, Storm Surge does activate 175 above the damage threshold. You're seeing they're only peeking for small opportunities. They're level with the ground, so they're not going to get as much information from all the teams rotating in.
Just for a second, it looked like someone literally fell out the sky. I'm like, do we have an in-game event happening right now? What was that? Like, Sphinx and Muzz just kind of hanging out right now. I like the spot that they're in, you know, 150 above. Not too bad, not exactly safe. However, it can go either way. See Curve, Veno now. They've already found themselves pretty content, right? They find their elimination, they get the big cleanup here, and they haven't quite left. They just took the surge base and have turned it into their own strategy. The zones continue to pull this way. They're gonna have to shockwave out here shortly. Here it goes. Going as a team, but ooh, someone's waiting for them to make that move. A little bit of damage onto Curve, but Veno goes untouched.
Yeah, those are the risks versus the reward that I kind of look at in situations where you're shockwaving off the height. You have a good bird game, they're able to pad that cushion when it comes to Storm Surge, so they can take minimal damage just like that. I see Clicks and Higgs still rotating in from Wonky Land. A little bit of slower rotation than others. They're taking a lot of the focus, and this is what happens when you fall behind with the rest of the pack.
I was wondering if we're going to get a little update on Clicks and Higgs here. Performance definitely coming up short. It's hard to live up to that hot start. Look at this, though. Sleep 10 wagers here. Tries to go up and over. They get caught in the process. Also find themselves below the surge. So there's just all types of problems here to deal with. Meanwhile, Metal takes full advantage of that. They get the refresh that they need. They might even build into the zone here with a monstrous metal base if they wanted to. I was going to say they do so. Let's take a look at it. It's Venom who connects there.
Big damage. Not sure what Slepsy was thinking, but I saw him 500 below the damage threshold. He's probably trying to drop on anybody with a surprise attack. Tries to get the one pump, but I did see, you know, the teammate just kind of go down right behind Paper, who was looking not even in that direction. Probably after the elimination got cleaned up, the loop kind of made itself known. Paper looks around like, ooh, what is this? Kind of gets rewarded there. Cold and Rapid. See them continuously staying on these mid layers. They don't want to have a target on their back going for high ground, especially since they're already in first place. They don't have to change up anything here. 313 damage above the threshold, just waiting for the next zone to pull, and more than half of the lobby just got a max pull over towards Humble Hills.
We have it. Things are about to start heating up real quick here now as we're approaching final moments of game number 9. Endgame is on. Sturm Surge is here. And Clicks and Higgs are 150 below right now. Still plenty of room of damage to be had here, so they have to play aggressive. Into the box they go. Higgs gets a monster shot, Clicks into the box. Wow. And Clicks does what he needs to, but no, it's Agers and Rituals are here to clean it up. And they take out some of that close competition there in Clicks and Higgs. And the runway is starting to open up now. Meanwhile, Curve and Veno, clear as day. Blue skies for the team over here. They have high ground and max material once again. This just doesn't get better for them.
Yeah, I'm not sure if these were all of their bases or not, but essentially shockwaving from base to base to base in the last couple of zones to make sure they maintain their presence up above. You see them all that extra loot building outward, not necessarily to hold the tarp, but just to get their edge inside of the zone. Peterbot and Pollo film the same struggle. For a moment, one below the damage threshold. They quickly prop themselves back up, 89 above. Pollo looking toward the backside of zone, trying to get some easy damage. Peterbot on the hunt for some of his own. Almost bites off more than he could chew in that moment. But either way, Pollo's able to clean up at least one elimination and continue to surge. Only 3 players need to go down before it deactivates. But as they get eliminations, so do Cold. Poor Cold adding to his total.
It's crazy, man. The amount of eliminations they managed to find in the end game is so impressive. And they're in the lead, mind you, right? So this is really going to give them that room to run away with it. You start looking at players like Rap, you start looking at players like Curve. Having an FNCS championship under your belt is one thing, but having it on NA just hits a little different too. So for some, they're looking to unify the belts. For others, they're trying to put the stamp on their name. And for folks like Curve, talk about really showcasing you're one of the greats now of the new era. First, you got to do it. Rapid and Cold continue to play the strat. Going for low ground front side here. Now, this time they do have low material count, so they will need a big refresh.
Which honestly doesn't worry me just one bit. Curve finds one though. They're on 8 eliminations already, continuing the pressure on the lobby. Absolute destruction here on NA, and really have to take note. If Veno finds himself in first place when the tournament is over, he will be a new 2-region champion. EU and NA Central, arguably 2 of the hardest regions to win a championship on, but he still got a quarter of the tournament left to play. Tyler, forced by himself, loses chance. Backside of the zone, he's getting pressured by Jack, Npen, and a few other teams. Everybody forced to rotate in. Finds a Fizz, trying to take advantage of that, but he runs into Peterbot and Pollo on the other side of the wall. Luckily for him, it looks like Peterbot and Pollo have their hands full, so they don't even look back. But as we tune back into Cold, he's by himself.
Unweight really starts to become available now for everyone else. But look at this. Veno lost in the process. Curve forced to play high ground by himself. Meanwhile, Acorn and Bolts find a 2-set elimination now low. And then we jump right into Pollo, who also has a refresh of their own. And everyone is clawing back into this competition now.
Yeah, with first place gone, we got Curve by himself. We got Aegis Ritual, Acorn and Bolts, even Peterbot and Pollo. That all could be our first place team after this game, and they're ready to make it so. Big Elim up towards the top. Peterbot and Pollo, they send it up towards high, give themselves a huge advantage, and another 4 points for those eliminations, even more with the placement as it comes in. But down below, the counterparts, Agers and Ritual still running wild. 5 eliminations of their own. They have pizza, they have splashes, they have materials on top, so they don't even necessarily need an elimination.
You line it up, they will knock it down. Bolts and Acorn here, 4 eliminations now on the low ground. Peterbot and Pollo, we already know, have solidified their high ground position. Bolts just continue to do what he does best. That's a monstrous refresh, and he picks up everything here. Gets the Chug Jug as well. He's just living off the siphon, but no, Acorn gets caught there by Javi in a minute. Tyler still holding on here as well. Somehow finds his way into top 5. When we last checked in, it was 20th place, and Tyler is just clutching up, showing us how badly he wants it. Bolts here on the low ground though. Javi and a minute here, full duo versus, of course, Peterbot Pollo. Pressure from the top. It's not looking too good here.
Yeah, both just getting pressure from all angles. Both of the duos sandwich him, eat him alive, but there comes the drop down coming in. Peterbot realizing it's going over recycled builds. They can maintain their presence, but a blessing for them is the same blessing from down below. Hobby and Aminish are able to utilize that same scenario, and rightfully so. Look at their material count monster. They were almost out of mats altogether.
Yeah, Peterbot knows what to do here. He's just got to keep that relentless pressure coming down. Hopefully he can pull for the win. But Hobby comes up, finds a little cheeky angle from the side there, but he's got no mats. Peterbot also punished too. Aminish's got nothing. Mafoyo's coming down and finish the job. Peterbot's already got the full conclusion there, and now Jacob, it's just looking like a 2v1.
Yeah, basically, Hobby's living on borrowed time here. He might know it as well. No extra material. Zone pulling on over. Yes, he can farm up a little bit, but double Thunder Burst up above the mythic AR. They're going to melt through those builds, and that's why you see layer by layer, Peterbot and Poyo dropping down. They just don't want to take any big risk here because they know this one is definitely in the bag. 9 eliminations so far, and if they're able to clean this one up, get that elimination onto Hobby, this could be a double-digit elimination